What we're about is to give you scientifically proven workouts that give you maximum health and fitness benefits in minimum time.
Ulrich, welcome back to the podcast. So we were talking off camera. Are you doing okay? I heard you had a bit of fun on a ski slope.
Yeah, I did. I broke my collarbone, but it's healing very well, and I'm back to normal almost.
Great. I hope it didn't interfere with using your bike.
Well, a little bit, but I'm getting back on it now.
So the last time you joined us, we talked about the revolutionary Carol bike, which I think if people are watching on YouTube, they can see in the background. And it's changing the way I think people think about fitness. You know, I've been using my own Carol bike now regularly, and I absolutely love it. For many listeners who missed our first episode together, what the heck is a Carol bike and what makes it so unique? Like, why is it different from competitors like Peloton, for example?
Yeah, sure. So Carol bike is the smartest and most efficient exercise bike. It's been properly scientifically proven to give you double the health and fitness benefits in 90% less time. It's got simple AI personalized workouts that are suitable for any age and fitness level. And you only have to work out for 20 seconds in a workout that takes as little as 5 minutes. So and we're very confident about that, the most efficient way to improve your VO2 max. Now, Peloton, they're a good company with a good product, but they're all about great soundtracks, celebrity instructors, and a sense of online community. And if that's your thing, perfect. What we're about is to give you scientifically proven workouts that give you maximum health and fitness benefits in minimum time. And that really sets us very clearly apart from them.
Yeah, you know, it's amazing. I don't think we ever showed it, but I actually did a video of myself in my suit before I went to work on your Carol bike doing a 5-minute workout. And I didn't break a sweat, but the computer, the AI said, okay, this is basically what you're going to do. And you're right. There were 2 20-second intervals that I had to work, but the rest of it was kind of a joyride. Now, most people who hear that, this sounds like the proverbial exercise in a bottle. And how in the world can you get me and my listeners to believe that this can actually increase your VO2 max? Where's the science? How did this all come about?
And that Carol bike and REHIT is really very special amongst all other workouts, amongst all other exercises you can do. So Carol has been optimized to help you push to your limits and to make that as safe and as easy and simple and effective as possible. So you momentarily push to maximum intensity, and that just triggers a different adaptation pathway compared to normal long endurance exercise. And with this REHIT workouts, you can trigger in mere seconds the release of the same signaling molecules that normal endurance training would take 45 to 60 minutes. And so that is just, it's a really radical trade-off of time versus intensity. And that's, we can dive very deep into that. So there's a fairly good understanding of the biological processes behind that. But it is just, in essence, you trade time versus intensity and you push to your limits for a very brief moment, 20 seconds. And that triggers just a very, very powerful training stimulus.
Well, that brings me to the introduction to this podcast. Endurance training, Zone 2 training. It's all a buzzword right now. What the heck is Zone 2 training, and why is it such a buzzword right now?
Yeah, so it's a cardio workout at a much lower intensity, a workout where you're still able to hold a conversation speak in whole sentences, albeit uncomfortably. And the intention there is that you train at a point where your body, where your muscles mainly use fat as the fuel for the exercise. Because it's fairly low intensity, zone 2 workouts have to be quite long to create a training stimulus. So the body will only adapt if you push it out of its comfort zone. Otherwise, it's just happy with the way it is. So for zone 2 training to work, you need 60 to 90 minutes per workout. And the suggestion is you do that 3 to 5 times per week. And then the desired outcome is an increase in mitochondrial function and mitochondrial efficiency, so that you're eventually, over time, be able to work out at a higher intensity while using predominantly fat for fuel. And you also increase your ability to clear lactate. And that's important for competitive athletes, because then you can race harder for longer.
And so I was talking to one of my associates in the personal fitness training industry, and I won't throw everybody under the bus, but since I'm friends with many trainers, they love zone 2 training for their clients because they either put them on a treadmill or a bike and say, go at it for 30 to 45 minutes of our 1 hour session, and they're on their cell phone or doing other things. So it's wonderful time for the trainer. All the trainer has to do is go, oh, let's go for another 5 minutes. You can do it. It takes a long time to accomplish what you want to do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely, and that's probably our main issue with it, not a very time-efficient workout at all.
So why do you think it's become so hype? I mean, truly, a lot of endurance athletes do swear by this, and I think the evidence, whatever there is, suggests that it may be useful for extreme endurance athletes. But why is the gym rat on the weekends trying to accomplish this?
So we asked ourselves that too. My explanation is it is, as you say, it's a concept that's very much in use and leveraged by endurance athletes, elite athletes like Tour de France cyclists. And the trainers, coaches, and influencers look towards elite athletes, kind of what are they doing? And the same concept trickled then into the mainstream and was picked up by some very big, very popular health and longevity influencers, and who, in all fairness, provide a lot of nuance with it if you read their full materials. But then, unfortunately, an unhelpful dynamic develops where a whole army of other influencers, smaller, and your local gym buddy, picks it up, and they only repeat kind of the big, bold statements without all the knowledge. And then suddenly everybody is talking about it and it becomes fashionable. So we think clearly, like, every exercise is good. Exercise is a good thing. It's so fundamental. It's probably the best thing you can do for yourself. But the priorities and the emphasis has really gone a little bit wrong, and it's become now a fashionable topic that might not be the best advice for everybody, or at least you have to be really careful not to fall into certain mistakes and traps.
Now, that kind of is a segue into my next question. A lot of fitness devices and wearables, I think, complicate things a bit for users. A lot of them guide you into, quote, let's get into zone 2 training. And are we getting the right message from all these devices? I mean, for instance, I have an Oura Ring, and hiding under here, I have a Whoop band, and I have nothing against them. I enjoy them. I actually use them for comic relief sometime because one may totally disagree with the other. That's not the point of this podcast. So why are these devices maybe giving us the wrong information?
it's not even the wrong information. It's just Zone 2 and Zone 2 training is not a well-defined term. Almost every device, every wearable, many different types of equipments have their own definition of what power zones are and heart rate zones are. So it's not necessarily the fault of the devices, but there is just no standard. And that means that even if you follow the well-meant advice from your local gym buddy or your fitness influencer, you're at risk of doing it wrong. For example, doing it at a too low level because it's meant to be low intensity, and then you might be really just wasting your time.
Gotcha. Influencers love this. Why isn't there much scientific data about this? This seems to me something that's fairly easily studied, even in the laboratory setting. Why is there a dearth of studies in this?
I think it goes also back to the lack of definitions. So obviously, exercise physiologists do many studies. There's lots of evidence on almost everything. But if you search on PubMed for Zone 2 training, you will find there are very, very few peer-reviewed academic studies. And that is because scientists research things like ventilatory threshold, lactate threshold, the VO2 max, concepts where there's a clear consensus as to what it is, what defines it. And that's just not the case with Zone 2 because it's a popular concept without a clear definition. And then, if you do look at then at the scientific evidence that is there and draw the parallels where you say like, okay, this was a similar level of intensity that people might refer to when they talk about Zone 2, is actually not very flattering. So if people followed government guidelines on cardio exercise and did 150 minutes per week of Zone 2 training, scientific evidence suggests that 40% of people would not see a benefit in their VO2 max in their cardiorespiratory fitness. So yeah, with Zone 2, you can spend a lot of time on it and you are at risk of not seeing particularly amazing benefits.
So is there a way for the average person to literally figure out if they're getting a benefit, or half the people wasting their time? I guess is the question.
I think rather than relying on a heart rate target from your wearable or so, the better advice would be that Zone 2 should take you to a level of perceived exertion where you can still speak and you can still speak in whole sentences, but it's uncomfortable. Or another way would be you can still speak, but you can't sing. And Zone 2 definitely is not meant to feel completely light and easy. And definitely, if you do it 60 to 90 minutes, it's not a light workout. It's then also real work and hard work that takes effort. The other thing would be if you have equipment, and for example, that's the Carol bike does that links your zones, your power zones to your FTP and to your VO2 max. Then that could help you train, at least not train at a too low level and train at the right intensity levels to get the benefits that Zone 2 has to offer.
All right, so a good segue back to the Carol bike. How does the Carol bike know my sweet spot? How does it know where to challenge me? How'd you guys work out the algorithm?
We're in a very privileged position by now that we have by far the largest database of these reduced exertion, high intensity workouts with tens of thousands of users and millions of rides. And that means we can run very sophisticated algorithms over the data. And what we look at is your performance in the sprints. So you hit your maximum power, and because it's your maximum, you can only hold it for a fraction of a second. And then for the rest of the sprint, you fatigue, and that is normal. So your power reduces. And because we have all this data and can then run reinforcement learning algorithms over it, we can determine, and we just then know what optimal looks like, not just for somebody generically, but for somebody just like you. And the bike will then automatically adjust the resistance from right to right. So you always get an optimal workout, an optimal personalized workout that gives you the right level of challenge for your current fitness level. So you keep improving for as long as possible. Or if you had an accident like me, resistance also gets dialed back to your fitness levels and what you can reasonably do now. So it gives you always the right challenge.
I'm glad you said that, because when I'm on the bike, and you're right, I watch this curve during the HIIT period. And, I hit a maximum, and then I'm trying as hard as I can, and I can clearly see that I'm falling off. And I'm figuring, well, I'm just a wuss, and, I'm a horrible specimen. But thank you, because I'm going, what the heck do I have to do? Why am I so weak? But you're saying that that's the design. I can only achieve that maximal exertion for literally a few seconds, right?
Exactly that. Yes. So what we want to achieve is that you push to your limits, even if it's just for a very, very short moment. But that moment you push to your limits and you create a biological response. You force your body to mobilize lots of energy very, very rapidly. And with that, it releases certain signaling molecules, AMPK, PGC1 alpha, and it does so in seconds. And 220-second sprints are really the minimum effective dose to saturate this signaling pathway. And that makes it a very, very efficient way to improve your fitness and to create such a powerful stimulus in such short time.
The average lay person, even me, it sounds just too good to be true, but my job is to, among other things, is to study signaling molecules. So I believe you. And where is the evidence that this, in fact, happens? What will people see? What's measurable that you found studying everyone?
Every user will see and feel very quickly is an improvement in their cardiorespiratory fitness. And we see that in our user data, and it's been shown in multiple scientific studies, different universities, different centers. So the data gets more and more robust. And what the studies are all quite aligned, and our user data is too, that within the first 8 weeks, you can expect on average an improvement of 12% of your VO2 max, your ability to metabolize oxygen. And that increases further. The longer scientific studies, they run up to 20 weeks, and our user data is aligned with that. You see then an improvement of up to 20%. And if you continue, it's not uncommon to see even an improvement of up to 50% in VO2 max in the first year. So this is certainly what I've experienced when I've started using our bike. I saw an improvement in VO2 max of 50% within 12 months. And now VO2 max is a very, very fundamental and important health marker. It's the strongest correlate to life expectancy. And I think many people would argue it might be the most important health marker. Such improvements, like a 12% improvement in 8 weeks, doing only 3 workouts per week, spending only 15, 20 minutes per week on exercising your cardio, respiratory fitness. That's very noticeable. It's not subtle. So you will feel it as you walk up the stairs, as you just in your everyday life, very clearly you feel it. And then the other benefit from having a bike that collects so much data is we can obviously quantify your workouts very well. You get a fitness score that tracks your VO2 max after each workout. And so you see your percentage improvement and see how you progress from ride to ride, from week to week, which is nice. It visualizes it. It gives you that additional reassurance. But the main thing is you really feel it.
Gotcha. I want to throw a little curveball at you. There's, at least in the United States and perhaps over in Europe, a love affair with GLP-1 agonist drugs for primarily weight loss. And one of the now known side effects of these drugs is sometimes a tremendous loss in muscle mass. teaming up with giving these drugs, but then putting you on a muscle building fitness program to try to prevent that loss for very good reason. Have you looked into the effect of a Carol bike with users of GLP-1? I'm sorry to throw that at you.
Yeah. We don't have any more than anecdotal data on that. So we don't have robust data. What we do know, both in our user data and in academic data, is that the forces you create and the power you exert during a REHIT ride is so high that it is also relevant for building strength and muscle mass. So our users see, again, over the first 8 weeks, an average increase of 14% in their maximum power. And our academic partners have verified that within, so I think they got 15% in leg strength measured as 1 rep max for a leg squat or for a squat, sorry. And so therefore, if you use the Carol bike, you definitely also get a strength and muscle benefit for your muscle groups in your thighs, in your
glutes and
glutes. Exactly. Sorry.
Okay.
And so it is definitely, I think, a helpful strategy. I know people are going to hear that, of course, as well, have this love affair. And as you say, it's really important that you don't only rely on that to, seemingly be in good shape. You also have to put on the work and do the exercise to really stay under the surface in good shape.
I do not prescribe these drugs. I have a number of my patients who get them elsewhere. And it is amazing. Some of them, they basically watch their leg muscles disappear. They were probably never there in the first place. It was just covered up with fat. But you're right. I mean, 60% of our muscle mass is in our thighs and butt. That's where it is. And so, and again, I wanted you to chime in. I think if I was ever prescribing these drugs, I'd prescribe a Carol bike to go with it personally. So there you go. Okay. Not everybody has access to a Carol bike. Good question. Are these available in gyms, or do you have to, purchase it from Carol bike?
So the Carol bike is designed and specified and tested for commercial use. And because it has to be a very robust bike, because you do these very intense, very high power sprints on them. And yes, they are in professional gyms. They're not in your standard gym. So you won't find us in Planet Fitness or your standard big box studio, but in the more advanced biohacking facilities, performance studios, you will find Carol bikes. And of course, many people purchase them for their own home, and you can purchase them in our web store. We'd love to see a Carol bike in every home, because we feel that would be actually a really kind of healthy way to make a dent in our inactivity and obesity epidemic.
Yeah. For people who don't have access to a Carol bike, are there any ways to incorporate REHIT into anybody's exercise program?
Yeah. So, there are some alternatives. I wouldn't recommend. So there are certain things that I wouldn't do. I wouldn't try it on a treadmill, on a rower, on an elliptical, because the movement patterns are too complex. I think the injury risk on a treadmill would be way too high. If you don't have access to a Carol bike, there are some alternatives. Very low cost would be hill sprints. If you have a hill and you're physically able to sprint for 20 seconds all out up a hill, that's a very effective way to train. Slight caution there, like not everybody has the joints to do that. There's a trip risk. And then one thing, this is just a personal observation. We know this also because the Carol bike is, like, some people have it in their office. Many people don't want to do an all-out sprint in public and be seen. Because yes, you go all out. That's the thing, and you might look funny, and so people might prefer that more in the comfort of their own home. In my local park, I hardly ever see anybody sprint all out. The other alternative, if you have access at home or in your gym, might be an air bike. So those are very popular with CrossFit athletes, and they can basically generate very quickly very high resistance level through those fans. Now, there are also some disadvantages. They're quite loud and noisy, and they have essentially just one gear. So it's one defined relationship between cadence, how fast you pedal, and what the resistance and power is. And so that might be optimal for one person, like a 30-year-old CrossFit athlete, but not necessarily for another. So my mother is 81. She uses our bike every other day religiously. And for her, that just wouldn't be the right resistance. And with a Carol bike, because we have our AI personalization and a computer-controlled brake that has 255 gears, we can just create a workout that helps every person, any Asian fitness level, to perform a safe and effective REHIT workout. And yeah, that's our bike is optimized for that, and others just aren't.
Yeah. You know, a few books ago, I wrote a book entitled The Energy Paradox, and I actually coined the term exercise snacking. And it's that term has recently been picked up by other people, but I'm pleased to say I actually coined the term. And a Carol bike is just a perfect example of exercise snacking. And that is, you know, a very short 2.5 to 5 minute workout with, you know, a really intensive little bit thrown in there. And you know, I made, I think, a compelling case that these short bursts of exercise really equate extremely well with much longer periods of strenuous, miserable exercise. And so I commend you for exercise snacking on a bike. Please use that term with my permission. Any other advice for somebody who really only has 30 minutes a few times a week to get in proper exercise? I'm sure this comes up all the time because perception or not, people don't think they have time to exercise.
Here, I think, and this is common for the vast majority of people. So the truth is just 95% of Americans don't get enough exercise. And the number one perceived reason, and we believe there's much to it, is lack of time. So, and that is our main issue with Zone 2. It's not that Zone 2 doesn't have its place if you have a lot of time for exercise. It does, certainly with elite athletes, but for the vast majority of us who are already struggling to find any time for exercise, it just doesn't seem to be the best strategy. And certainly if you only have like 30 minutes here and there, it would be, may I say, a quite foolish strategy. If you have only 30 minutes here and there, you ought to get the most efficient exercises in first. Do something like REHIT, ideally on a Carol bike, to cover your cardio. The next thing before I would do Zone 2 would be do some resistance training. Very important as another fundamental pillar of exercise that you need. And also some work on mobility, stability, maybe some stretching and yoga is another important aspect. And then if you have more time, by all means, do something you love. And for some people, that will be Zone 2 training because it gets them into the right mental state. And then wonderful. Carol bike will be a great help for that as well. But get those efficient exercises and workouts in first, cover all your bases, cardio, strength, mobility, and then look to those additions if you have more time.
More amazing episodes just like this one. Watch now.
So a regular cold shower can actually lower your heart rate, decrease stress signals in your liver. and actually prevent the unnecessary production of cortisol and glucose.